Welcome to the Pregnancy Help News Brief for July 2026. I'm Lisa Bourne, Managing Editor of Pregnancy Help News. Here's a look at some of this month's top stories. The people of the state of California v. Heartbeat International and Real Options, the first trial over abortion pill reversal in the United States, opened in late June. The implications for freedom of speech extend far beyond California and Heartbeat International, with the ability for attorneys general across the country to penalize any nonprofit the state disagrees with at issue. In other news, Heartbeat International continued to back Louisiana's legal effort to safeguard women from risky chemical abortion drugs and coerced abortion by filing an amicus brief in the state of Louisiana v. FDA case. Pregnancy Help News writer Sherry Peig explored the prevalent silence from the church on abortion. Post-abortion healing retreats like Rachel's Vineyard have begun to flourish in Russia and Kazakhstan after decades of heavily promoted abortion in those countries. Pregnancy Help personnel in New York State were recharged in their commitment to life-affirming ministry as the New York State Coalition for Life presented its annual conference. Life Choices of Memphis Pregnancy Help Medical Clinic launched a fatherhood program over a year ago to help fathers shape the future, and it has seen success. An Army captain pleaded guilty to forcing an abortion on a junior enlisted soldier by secretly giving her abortion pills. Pro-life leaders are remembering Senator Lindsey Graham as a longtime champion for unborn children. Now let's take a closer look at this month's top stories. National pro-life organizations are remembering the late Senator Lindsey Graham as one of the movement's most steadfast advocates, praising his decades-long legislative efforts to protect unborn children and pledging to continue the work he championed. Graham, 71, died on July 11th, and pro-life groups pledged to continue legislative efforts he supported. Following news of Graham's death, leaders from Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, National Right to Life, and other pro-life groups reflected on the South Carolina Republican's legacy, highlighting his willingness to pursue federal protections for unborn children even when such efforts face political opposition. Graham's sister, Darlene Graham Nordone, has been named to hold his Senate seat temporarily to fulfill the remainder of his term. An Army captain pleaded guilty to forcing an abortion on a junior enlisted soldier by secretly giving her abortion pills and has been sentenced to 12 years in prison. Captain Brandon Jones Adams put abortion pills in the drink of a woman who had become pregnant after the two were in a consensual relationship. The Department of the Army Criminal Investigation Division was notified, and it was discovered that Jones Adams had ordered mifepristone. Searches on his phone revealed multiple attempts to obtain mifepristone, the first drug of the abortion pill regimen, and he eventually ordered it online using a fake name. He has since pleaded guilty to multiple charges, including intentionally killing a preborn child, domestic violence, fraternization, and conduct unbecoming of an officer. He could have been sentenced to between 4 and 12 years in prison and was given the maximum sentence of 12 years. He was stripped of all pay and allowances and was also dismissed from the Army, which is the equivalent to a dishonorable discharge for officers. Life Choices of Memphis Pregnancy Medical Clinic launched a fatherhood program over a year ago with the idea that fathers shape the future and the approach of an intentional discipleship process. The program, named 27, exists to help fathers and fathers-to-be understand their role in the journey of pregnancy, parenting, and family leadership. The program's name and focus are taken from Proverbs 27, the righteous man who walks in his integrity, blessed are his children after him. Life Choices of Memphis has seen multiple clients benefit from the program and welcomes inquiries about the curriculum. Pregnancy Help personnel in New York State attended the 2026 New York State Coalition for Life annual conference recently, and accounts from those in attendance say the conference content was compelling, the fellowship inspiring, and the unity invaluable. The conference came as coalitions have become more key especially in abortion states hostile to pro-life advocacy and pregnancy help. Kathy German, Director of Affiliate Services for Heartbeat International and former Executive Director for New Hope Family Services in Syracuse, passed the baton as President of the New York State Coalition during the event to now former Vice President Jennifer Lawler, Executive Director of A Light Center in Hudson. Lawler said, quote, "This year's conference was a powerful reminder of why we do what we do. Through spirit-filled worship, the presenters who poured into us with wisdom, experience, and practical tools to strengthen our ministries, and the meaningful conversations we shared, we were reminded that we are not alone in this mission." End quote. Post-abortion healing retreats like Rachel's Vineyard have begun to flourish in Russia and Kazakhstan after decades of heavily promoted abortion in those countries. Soviet Russia legalized abortion in 1920, the first country in the world to do so. Over the 70 years of the Soviet Union's existence, over 200 million abortions took place. Abortion remains extremely common in Russia, leaving countless women to suffer after having abortions. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, abortion remained common in Russia, though it has fallen from recent decades. Post-abortion healing retreats like Rachel's Vineyard are now thriving in Russia, according to Vatican News. Organizations like Rachel's Vineyard and others have assisted post-abortive men and women for years in working through post-abortion trauma and regret. Pregnancy Help News writer Sherry Peig offered thoughtful analysis of the cost of the church's silence on abortion. Recognizing that abortion has become too controversial to address, Sherry wrote that the church is not called to the politeness of silence. The fact that abortion is debated politically does not mean it is inherently a political issue, she wrote. And even though the moral and spiritual question of abortion is preeminent, does one person have the right to end the innocent life of a preborn human being? Many churches will not publicly address this question at all. Sherry called pastors to put concern over their flock's salvation above the concern about offending their congregants. The question is not whether abortion is difficult to address, she said. It is whether the church will be faithful enough to address it anyway. Heartbeat International filed an amicus brief June 22nd in State of Louisiana v. FDA, asking the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals to reinstate its injunction on the 2023 risk evaluation and mitigation strategy for chemical abortion drug mifepristone. A decision from the Fifth Circuit in Louisiana's favor could again halt remote prescribing and dispensing of mifepristone and bring the case back to district court to be further litigated on the merits. Louisiana v. FDA concerns what pro-life advocates regard as dangerous deregulation and removal of critical safety standards of chemical abortion drugs, putting women at unnecessary risk. Heartbeat noted in its brief that the FDA's actions to make mifepristone more easily available are based upon the flawed premise that pregnancy is an illness to be cured and violate the Comstock Act, which prohibits interstate mailing and shipping of abortion-inducing drugs. The FDA's relaxed rules also undermine state abortion regulations, Heartbeat argued, which were recognized even under Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood v. Casey, and obstructs the intended return of the abortion issue to the states in the Supreme Court Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health ruling. Heartbeat argued as well that the FDA's loosening of its safety standards for mifepristone puts women at psychological, emotional, and medical risk and in danger of coerced and forced abortion. Heartbeat International and Real Options Obria Medical Clinics of California are on trial defending the right to share information about abortion pill reversal. The People of the State of California v. Heartbeat and Real Options is being litigated in California Superior Court. The Attorney General of California accuses Heartbeat and Real Options of false advertising regarding APR and is seeking nearly $20 million in penalties against Heartbeat International and to prohibit both Heartbeat and Real Options from advertising abortion pill reversal as safe and effective. More than 200 women who sought assistance through the Abortion Pill Rescue Network signed an open letter as the trial opened, conveying gratitude for the care, information, and the hope they received from the network. More than 40 of those 200-plus women were from California. 2 moms who saved their children with APR testified in court, sharing their stories, expressing gratitude, and illustrating the impact of APR. A 3rd mom was scheduled to testify in the trials last week. San Francisco Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone called for prayer on X for Thomas More Society attorneys who are representing Heartbeat and Real Options in the trial, and for prayer for women who seek to reverse the effects of chemical abortion pills. Cordileone termed the lawsuit, quote, an abuse of power by the state of California, end quote, in his social media post, and touched on several key issues in the case. His X post said, quote, please pray for the attorneys defending vulnerable women in the California v. Heartbeat International case, and pray for the women seeking to reverse abortion pills. Using commercial fraud statutes to shut down access to full medical information and the full range of freedom of choice is an abuse of power by the state of California, especially given 0 complaints and saved lives. End quote. The trial for the people of the state of California v. Heartbeat International and Real Options was scheduled to conclude at the end of July, with closing arguments and a ruling from the judge expected at a later date. That's the news for this episode of the Pregnancy Help News Brief. All of these stories and more are available to you 24/7 at pregnancyhelpnews.com. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Pregnancy Help News Brief on Pregnancy Help Podcast. I'm Lisa Bourne. Subscribe to receive updates on future episodes.